This time, that didn't even come from Donald Trump. Not even when Donald Trump was in the building. But a warm-up speaker at his rally makes one joke, but a comedian at Kamala Harris's rally makes at least one that's even more offensive in the other direction. And we're not talking about it. I think that we have to be able to really take seriously what Donald Trump and Kamala Harris say versus jokes of some comedian.
He made it in his...
So Vivek Ramaswamy just completely took this CNN anchor to school over the whole Puerto Rican controversy from the Madison Square Garden rally. And then she tries to shift the conversation to election integrity and how Republicans are, just crazy about election denial or something. And guess what happens next? Vivek Ramaswamy again takes her to school. This was frankly embarrassing for CNN. I'll show you it here today. But folks, firstly, do us a big favor. If you enjoy the content, be sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And why should you subscribe? Because doing so goes a long way in ensuring we can keep bringing you these videos. We are just 7 days away from the 2024 election. It's never been a better time to support independent media. Stand up to the CNNs and MSNBCs of the world by hitting that subscribe button. And with that said, take a listen, guys. This is so brutal, but at the same time, it is so satisfying for several minutes straight. Let's get into it.
The Trump campaign press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, on Fox earlier saying the joke doesn't reflect the views of President Trump or our campaign, specifically talking about the Puerto Rico joke. But also she said the crowd, they didn't mind. You were there. Did you mind?
Look, the fact of the matter is I wasn't in the room when that joke was made, but I got to say, we got to take a step back and look at the double standards here, Brianna. Let's be really honest. George Lopez made a joke at Kamala Harris's rally over the weekend about all Mexicans being thieves. Are we attributing that comment to Kamala Harris or querying all of her proxies who were at that rally? No, we're not. So I think we need to all get off our high horses and acknowledge that a bad joke was told. It was bad because it wasn't very funny. The audience didn't find it funny. The guys told other funny jokes in other places. This wasn't one of them. But the media manufacturing of outrage out of this is really just a double standard when you look at the exact kind of jokes being told at the Kamala Harris rally over the weekend. And the fact is, if George Lopez had said that at the Donald Trump rally, if I may finish.
You've seen a comedy show before?
If I may finish, just to finish making the point, if the George Lopez joke had been told at the Donald Trump rally, you and I both know we'd be talking about that. But because it was at a Kamala Harris rally, we're not saying a word about it. And I think that that's just hypocritical.
I mean, boom. I didn't even know that George Lopez joke happened. But yeah, that should settle the entire conversation. In fact, I encourage all Trump supporters right now, go clip that and post it on Twitter, post it on Facebook, post it everywhere. Because straight up, we need to shut down this stupid conversation where apparently comedy is illegal. And yes, should they have had the guy speak at the rally? Probably not. Okay, like I said, I've been saying this. You don't want to create liability before the election, but the idea that this somehow embodies the Trump campaign message or it's like inherently immoral for a comedian to tell jokes, that's just ridiculous. Look at her face. Look at the CNN anchor's face. Let's see what she has to say.
I think that if your comedian were Mexican-American, it might be different. I mean, you're familiar with, I'm assuming you've been to a comedy show. You're familiar with these things. If someone is of South Asian descent or they're Mexican-American and they tell a joke about the group from which they come from, things can land a little differently. And we heard these jokes. There is a group, certainly, that the comedian belongs to, and he didn't really joke about them that much. So I think that's something to note as well.
Well, first of all, that's just a completely made-up standard. Like, jokes are jokes, no matter who says it. But secondly, okay, in that case, then why is it okay for non-white comedians to make fun of white people? Because this happens all the time. Nobody's ever complaining. I don't know. It's still just ridiculous cope. At the end of the day, it's a comedian's joke, okay? And to turn this into some type of political messaging of the Trump campaign is fundamentally dishonest. You guys know you're dishonest, but they know they're being dishonest. They frankly just don't care.
The funny and most remarkable part about this is the audience didn't love the joke. They actually booed, and it says a lot about the audience's response to a bad joke. On the end, this is a comedian who roasted Tom Brady famously as well, so everybody knew he was a comedian. Let's also take a step back and ask what else was going on during this same rally, or focused on this early warm-up speakers. Frankly, most people didn't even know he was going to speak early on in the rally. The whole time, Tim Walz is doing a live stream, calling the people in Madison Square Garden Nazis. Where's the apology for that? I was in the room. I was there the entire time. There were multiple Israel flags held up in the audience. Not exactly the material of a Nazi rally. And I just think that this media game isn't healthy for the country, where we airlift some comment, this time that didn't even come from Donald Trump, not even when Donald Trump was in the building, but a warm-up speaker at his rally makes one joke, but a comedian at Kamala Harris's rally makes at least one that's even more offensive in the other direction, and we're not talking about it. I think that we have to be able to really take seriously what Donald Trump and Kamala Harris say versus jokes of some
He made it in his own direction, but I will tell you that the comedian certainly overshadowed a lot of people making statements, and that included yours. You were there. You said this was part of your message last night, and I want to discuss it with you.
Yeah, the reason the comedian overshadowed it is because you guys, the media, decided to make a really big deal out of this, okay? Because you, again, are dishonest people. You want to just take things out of context and, stress the things that are not important while ignoring the things that are important. So that's honestly a condemnation of the media itself, that this guy, this one comedian that spoke very early in the rally when most people were not even tuned into the live stream yet to, pretend like he was very important in the discussion of the politics of this event.
What does it mean to be American? It means we have elections we can trust and believe in, and that means single-day voting on Election Day as a national holiday with paper ballots and government-issued ID to match the voter file. That's how we save the country after we win it this time, by voting early.
Okay.
So voting early is okay to use to win for your guy, but then you want to get rid of it?
I think you got to play by the rules you have in order to change them to what they should be. Just like people should pay taxes as required by the tax code, who may otherwise favor changing the tax code, the same applies to the way we conduct elections. And if I may for a second, you brought up Puerto Rico before. I actually love Puerto Rico. I've spent a lot of time there. One of the things I've done in my studies of the island, meeting with leaders there, is understand how they conduct elections in Puerto Rico. And I think we have a lot to learn from them, where they do have single-day voting on Election Day as a holiday for the island. They use paper ballots and other election security measures that we don't use in the United States. So for our part, speaking to Puerto Ricans, what I want to say is we have a lot to learn from Puerto Rico, including the way they run elections. But yes, we have to win this election in order to get there. And so play by the rules we have legally to the fullest extent allowed. And then, yes, I think it could be civic and unifying, in civic unity for the country, to say there's one day we take apart from our daily drudgery of our day to say we're doing our duty to our country and more united as a consequence. But that's not happening this election. We need to win this election, and that's why I do think it is not only okay, I would encourage people this election so we can win to vote early to change the rules to what they should be.
That's ironic, isn't it? I guess suddenly they're anti-Puerto Rico, okay? The Puerto Ricans are very racist for having voter ID and in-person paper ballot voting.
Even on national holidays, some people will still work. We see them working. Sure. We see them. If you're so concerned
for that. Of course, we have exceptions for people who are working like emergency workers or otherwise. But the basic premise, as Puerto Rico does it, if
you're so concerned about, Vivek, if you're so concerned about paper trails, are you aware who has the biggest lack of them?
I don't follow the premise of the question, Brianna, I have to confess.
If you're so worried about paper trails.
Yes.
Like, is this like an issue that you're talking about, or
she doesn't know what she's talking about, okay? Like, listen to her. She's not, she's like, but if you want secure elections, get it out. Come on, try getting it out. Try getting it out.
With threat of prosecution and deportation as a deterrent, which may be why it just doesn't happen in any meaningful number, including in your home state. I just wonder, in both of these cases, are you promoting a solution to solve problems that don't exist?
I'm promoting a solution to address a problem that does exist, which is the loss of public confidence in elections against the backdrop of voter fraud that is real.
Well, why do you think there's a loss in confidence?
Nobody. Whoa. You just said you weren't interrupting me, and then you're interrupting me, Brianna.
Well, now I am.
Finish answering the question.
Because we're running out of time. Why do you think there's a loss in confidence?
I think that
she's just embarrassing herself. I mean, does she think this is making her look good right now? It is not. Okay. Yeah, you're running out of time. You should just cut the interview early at this point, because she's just like having the floor wiped with her right now.
I think there's a loss in confidence because there are unknown numbers of illegal migrants in this country. And I think there's a big loss of confidence because people object to the idea of using voter IDs, the same IDs you're required to drive a car, Why is it objectionable to use that to actually be a requirement to vote?
Correct.
The fact that people call that racist to shut down debate, yes, I do think that breeds public mistrust.
I do.
So here's what
I'm
I
going
want.
to interrupt you because best
I don't want
practices,
complaints about election integrity. I don't want us fighting over stolen elections.
Cross-referencing votes with the DMV and Social Security to make sure that that doesn't happen. I do just want to be clear. You're talking about this idea of like all of these imaginary illegal immigrants who are voting. It's just not true. Texas, there was this point where they had thousands of people they identified as non-citizens. Turned out they had become citizens. They actually had to settle because of what they did there. Georgia, the Republican Secretary of State, they identified 20 non-citizens who had registered to vote. Out of 8.2 million, 9 of them had voted. All of them were sent to law enforcement. And in Ohio, your state, out of 8 million people, law enforcement is reviewing 138 people who cast a ballot for possibly, that hasn't even been confirmed. I get what you're saying, but these numbers are not meaningful.
I've heard these cases.
You spend a lot of time talking about a problem that is so minuscule, it doesn't affect outcomes.
Then why did California just outlaw voter ID? Like, no, not even making this up. They outlawed it, right? That is the chief reason why Republicans have concerns. And by the way, just saying, if the core Republican argument is that we don't know how much this stuff is happening in our elections, then how is it valid to say, okay, but of the instances they've identified, it's very small? Isn't the entire, I'm just saying, right? Wouldn't the entire Republican argument be that because we don't have voter ID, because we don't have very secure, this and that, we don't know what's really happening on that front? I don't know. I'm just saying, just throwing out an idea, kind of just playing devil's advocate there. I'm not sure. Let's hear what Vivek has to say.
I actually don't. The challenge I would give you and to anybody who shares your view is explain why voter ID laws are controversial.
Yeah, if they have such an issue with it, just explain voter ID laws. Okay. That should be undeniable. They should exist. Let's see.
Why is it racist to have a voter ID law? And the fact that people are using racist allegations against the simple premise of having a driver's license to vote is what is breeding public mistrust in our elections.
Yep.
And I'll make a pledge to everybody in this country, Republican or Democrat. If we get to voter ID laws that match the voter file and have single-day voting on Election Day as a national holiday, I'm done, and anybody else in the Republican Party should be done as well, and the Democratic Party too, in complaining about election integrity. Do it the way Puerto Rico does it, and if they do it in Puerto Rico, we can do it in the rest of the United States, and turn this page so that we're not talking about this issue. But the fact that voter ID laws are themselves controversial with the left reveals that there is a real issue here, that if a voter ID law is deemed racist and you're not even allowed to talk about advocating for that without undergoing this kind of grilling, that reveals a real issue and loss of public trust that I do believe we need to fix to unite this country. That's my hope, and I do think a solid victory, which we are not debating on November 6th, for either candidate, I hope it's Donald Trump, is something that will unite this country, and that's what I'm rooting for.
Well, I think it's because the consequence that I certainly hope from your perspective is inadvertent, is that it discourages some people who have the right to vote from voting in numbers that far eclipse what you're talking about solving with this non-existent problem. But
I respectfully disagree with
Ramaswamy,
that, just as it doesn't deter them from driving. But I think that that's a reasonable discussion for us to have in good faith rather than dismissing voter ID laws as racist. At least that's a constructive step in the debate.
I don't know. I didn't say it was racist, so I understand. Maybe you're having a conversation with someone else about this, but it's not me.
In
Vivek,
Georgia, countless leftists have, yeah.
Vivek Ramaswamy, thank you for being with us.
So yeah, just keep this in mind. CNN thinks that conservative people are crazy because they think there may be issues with the way we conduct our elections. They want to see that done differently. But then she puts out the most baseless, ridiculous, frankly, conspiracy theory ever that voter ID would somehow drive voter suppression because there's people who want to vote but don't know how to get a driver's license. Everyone has a driver's license, okay? In that case, why do we require government ID for, say, the TSA? Hey, maybe someone needs to fly who doesn't want to do it. Buying cigarettes, buying alcohol. Like, frankly, I'm sorry. If you are not competent enough to get a driver's license or you think that's too much work, maybe you shouldn't be voting in the first place. I will say that. I will go out and say that, like, outright. Because I think in order to have a quote-unquote healthy democracy, you can't just have random naive idiots like checking boxes. People should be making informed, thought-out decisions. And frankly, to me, if you're not dedicated enough to engaging in the democratic process to get a driver's license, which again, I'm gonna guess most people already have because they need to drive, they need to go places, they want to travel, they want to buy alcohol maybe, I don't know. It's just completely silly. But yeah, with that said, there you have it. CNN just completely embarrassed. Vivek was running circles around this woman, and what a spectacle that was to watch. With that said, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.